Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Cut to the Chase Sports Podcast. This is episode 11 of season 2. I'm your host, Chase Yantz. As you can see, I'm by myself. This is one of the first solo episodes I think this is the first episode that I've done solo. I think the entire time I've done this. It's exam week. Brady in high school doing stuff, when it comes to exams, as well as Jake. So those guys have the night off. So this will be the floor to talk some NFL, kind of change the description. In the YouTube description, we'll be doing our college football review most likely on Thursday when we get those guys back, or actually whenever we get those guys back. We'll be doing the college football year in review, regular season wise, and we'll do some bold picks after that. But with that, you're stuck with me tonight. Purely NFL is my way to go, and that's the way we're going to do things right here. Looking at week 14 of the NFL season, there's a lot of shuffle. A lot of shuffle went on, especially starting with the Thursday night football game between the Steelers and the Vikings. 36-28 was the final there. Ben Roethlisberger actually ended up playing an all right game, 308 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. Not all right, actually a pretty good game overall. Just couldn't get stuff going at the beginning. But the story of that was the Vikings running attack. Dalvin Cook had 27 carries for 206 yards and 2 touchdowns, and the Vikings basically could do anything they want at will. In the first half of that game, but Pittsburgh was able to turn it on and make it such a close game. Down the stretch, the Minnesota Vikings improved to 6-7. Pittsburgh is 6-1. They have a tie with Detroit, so that kind of puts them, it could be a blessing and curse at the same time. With that tie, puts them above everybody else, but also could put them below when it comes to the walks of 500. Kirk Cousins went 14 for 31, 216, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions on the night. Started out pretty well, but showed some of the colors of why Kirk Cousins isn't considered an elite quarterback. He's considered a very good quarterback in that. He's considered a good quarterback in the National Football League among, experts in the NFL. He's never really been considered elite. There's just been some things about him, inaccuracy. I'm not talking about inaccuracy. I'm talking about just inconsistency, actually. He'll play great, play a Pro Bowler for like 3 games in a row, and then just kind of go missing and not step up when the team needs him to. But yeah, the Vikings improved to 6-7. They're in that NFC wildcard race right now. There's a handful of teams in both conference in the wild card races. So that'll definitely be something to keep an eye on down the stretch. Hopping to the AFC North, the matchup here, Baltimore and Cleveland. The Browns ended up winning this one 24-22, but it was a lot more of a gap. If you watched most of that game. Lamar Jackson did end up getting hurt. I believe in the second quarter. I didn't get to watch most of this game. Had a practice then. But Lamar Jackson did get hurt, carted off the field. Sources say that John Harbaugh believes he should be good to go on Sunday against the Packers. So definitely needed. Replacement Tyler Huntley actually did not play bad at all. 27 for 38, 270 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks. Baker Mayfield on the opposition went 22 for 32 with 190 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Looking at more stats here, it looks as though when the first time these two teams played, the Ravens completely shut down the Browns' run game. They were non-existent. Nick Chubb had, I would say, the worst game of his career. I don't even think he eclipsed the 20-yard mark that Sunday night. They held the Browns only to 100 yards rushing, which is below average when it comes to them having that good offensive line and, that power tandem and Chubb and Hunt, and also Dennis Johnson. But a very sour game for the Baltimore Ravens defensively. couldn't get things going. And then the Browns just being able to control clock. They'd have 33 minutes and 50 seconds of possession, so an extra 7 minutes with the ball is a nice long drive that separates those two teams right there. Overall, but yeah, the Browns go to 7-6. The Ravens are 8-5. The Browns are a game out from the Ravens in first place. They play each other twice already. The Browns playing them back-to-back weeks, having that bye in between. So the Ravens still hold the top of the AFC North, but who knows for how long. There's still 4 games left in the season, but they dropped to 8-5. They have the Packers coming up this week. Browns have the Raiders coming up Saturday at 4:30 on NFL Network. Tossing it down to the Jaguars and Titans. The Titans just easily handled them 20-0. Nothing too big. When it comes to the Titans, Ryan Tannehill went 20 for 31, 191, didn't have any touchdowns or interceptions. Donta Foreman, 13 carries, 47 yards and a touchdown. This was a very, I'd say, stale game overall. The only thing that had some type of spice was Trevor Lawrence throwing for 4 interceptions with his 221 yards. I mean, that's the big thing that took him out of this game, obviously. Trevor Lawrence has had overall rough rookie season. I'd say 9 touchdowns to 14 interceptions, 2,735 yards, and a quarterback rating of 32, 28th in the league when it comes to that. So not having the season that he wanted. I mean, he's not in a good spot, I'd say, when it comes to the coaching and Urban Meyer. Some guys did get hurt overall this season. So he's obviously not in a great situation right now, so they're definitely gonna have to build around him when it comes to that. Tennessee's at 9-4. They have the Steelers, Niners, Dolphins, and Texans the next 3 games. Remember, they did lose to the Texans. That's one of the 2 Texans wins this year. So the Titans, to say the least, they don't have an easy schedule down the stretch. They, these are a bunch of teams that can give them some good games down the stretch. So the Titans are really going to have to pull some things out right now and hope that Derrick Henry can come back before the playoffs start or when the playoffs start, because it looks as though the Titans have a nice, comfortable lead in the AFC South, especially beating the Colts twice this year. So 20-0, Titans beat the Jags, and more of a blowout here, actually. The Chiefs, they woke up. They've been awake. 48-9 over the Las Vegas Raiders. Sources, not sources, but I think anyone with eyes can say that the Chiefs woke up against the Raiders on Sunday Night Football back in Week 10, beating them 41-14 in Vegas. Basically a duplicate effort right there. 48-9. Chiefs are 9-4. Raiders fall to 6-7, and it always seems as though the Raiders start on that nice incline. They're hot. New talk of the league, Derek Carr, MVP ? And then they start to see that he's not a bad quarterback, but he's really just another Sid from Toy Story. So nothing spectacular from Derek Carr on Sunday. 33 for 45, 263 yards, a touchdown, and interception. Had less. I'm doing the math in my head right now. I think he had about less than 7 yards of completion. So obviously there's a lot of passes behind the line of scrimmage, I would assume, or just very quick game and all that stuff. So nothing spectacular there. Hunter Renfrow did have 13 of those 33 completions of Derek Carr's for 117 yards, and that lone touchdown the Raiders scored. In opposition, Patrick Mahomes went 20 for 24, 258, 2 touchdowns on the day. So he played a very spotless game overall. Had a rating of 139.2. For the people out there that don't know, 158.3 is a perfect rating. Patrick Mahomes was just 19.1 points off of a perfect rating, which is really saying something. And the Chiefs' run game got going too. 132 yards rushing. They basically controlled the clock as well. They had 7 more minutes of possession over the Raiders. The Raiders actually had more plays. I'm just looking at these stats up hand right now. The Raiders had 61 plays, the Chiefs 57. Just happened that the Chiefs were able to do a lot more out of it when it comes to that. And turnovers, was the big factor in this one. The Raiders had 5. They had 4 fumbles lost. 4. That's incredible. That sounds like the game I'm about to talk about in a little bit. And I have a lot to say about that one, but yeah, the Raiders turnovers, fumbling, ball security, that's what took them out of the game. And I mean, when you lose the rushing battle 132-44, don't expect to win anything at all. Don't expect to win another game the rest of the season if you can't, at least be competitive when it comes to the running battle. The Saints over the Jets, 30-9. Jets are now 3-10. Saints are 6-7. Taysom Hill went 15 for 21, 175 yards, no scores. Zach Wilson, 19 for 42, 202. Did not have an interception. We'll say that. He did not have a pick on the day, but the big story was Alvin Kamara, 27 carries for 120 yards and a touchdown. That got the Saints moving right there, and that might be the jolt that they need down this playoff stretch. With them being not even a game out of the playoffs, they have Washington, who's in that 7 line right now. So it's going to be a very jam-packed race down the stretch when it comes to the NFC 7 seed discussion. And rolling ahead right now to the Cowboys and Washington. Cowboys took the cake there, 27-20. Dak Prescott didn't have too great of a game, 22 for 39, 211 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. The defense was the real big thing right there. They had a couple of takeaways, had a fumble for a touchdown. Washington did have 4 turnovers to Dallas's 2, which were a result from Prescott. The Cowboys forced 3 fumbles on the day. And I mean, the big key right there was Micah Parsons, who has been a terror this year. He had, I believe he had 6 tackles. No, he had 3 tackles, and he had 2 sacks and a tackle for loss and 2 quarterback hits. I mean, defensive rookie of the year right there. But on top of that, he very well could be defensive player of the year if you go back and look at the stats. CBS Sports posted something about, the 3 main pass rushers when it comes to TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, and Micah Parsons. And Parsons in that discussion of an emerging defensive player on that side of the ball, and arguably the best this season. He's lined up inside. He's lined up in the middle. He's lined up, outside linebackers, still able to contain run, able to go after the quarterback. He's really done it all. So there's been no issue whatsoever when it comes to Micah Parsons. And bumping down to the Falcons and the Panthers. The Falcons took the big win right here. They are 6-7, and they are right there in that 7-line race. Matt Ryan went 19 for 28, 190 yards and a touchdown, as Cam Newton in the opposition went 15 for 23, 178 and an interception. And the Cam Newton reign in Carolina's got to end. It's going to be pretty soon. That second stint was not a great idea. Just let PJ Walker play at this point. Not doing any justice right there. Cordero Patterson had 16 carries for 58 yards and a touchdown. The receiver turned running back has done a very good job adding another dimension to the Falcons, especially in the run game. But, having that experience as a returner, he's able to see running lanes and able to take some contact. So he's put on some weight, some necessary weight to play the position. He's done a pretty good job this year overall. Seahawks beating the Texans 33-13. Russell Wilson looked like he was back, 17 for 28, 260, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. And Rashad Penny had 16 carries for 137 yards and 2 touchdowns, averaging almost 9 yards a carry right there. There's a couple of teams like that where the Texans are one of them that can really, if you have any problems, they can solve them for you. So the Texans, Davis Mills went for 33 for 49, 331 and a touchdown. Had an overall solid game with Brandon Cooks, 8 for 101. But obviously the Texans could not get that job done. No turnovers by both teams in this game. The Texans actually had the time possession by 7 more minutes, and the Seahawks won that run game battle by over 130 yards. Entering the 4 o'clock realm, which is was an interesting window. The Lions and the Broncos, 38-10 was the score. Jared Goff went 24 for 39, 215, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Teddy Bridgewater was 18 for 25, 179, 2 touchdowns. And Melvin Gordon, 24 carries for 111 yards and 2 touchdowns on the day. The Lions looked like they were in it. Then the Broncos just took a hold right out of the gate in the third quarter and just ran away with that one. And here I'll bring on a special guest that I did not intend on having. Let me take this headset off real quick. Yeah. Didn't expect this to happen today. But hey, it's my dad. Did not expect that.
That's all right. I'm here and I'm ready to talk.
Well, I haven't seen you all day. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. Long day at work, but mixed in some sports in between, and I'm excited about the potential for the Bengals, especially with the way Joe Burrow played.
Yep, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But kind of want to talk about the team that defeated the Bengals last week. The Chargers and the Giants played 37-21. The Chargers won that game, 23 for 31, 275, 3 touchdowns from Justin Herbert. We saw him play in person last week. What do you think about Justin Herbert overall?
Did you see that one touchdown? He threw a cannon of a shot. It was like 65 yards maybe.
Through the air, I believe.
Through the air. It was unbelievable. Dude's got a can of – and then he got hit right as he threw and still completed the pass. The dude's a stud. He's right up there. Him and Joe Burrow are going to be battling it out for probably 10 years.
They could
is my guess.
There's a lot of very good young quarterbacks in the National Football League. Just a big difference overall. And you find it's not anymore. You find 2 or 3 really good quarterbacks in these last couple of draft classes. You had Burrow and Herbert, and then the years before you had Kyler Murray coming out, and then you had Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and even the aforementioned Deshaun Watson, who
when you look at like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are both hurt. Like we don't know what the status of that is. Obviously, as a Bengals fan, it'd be nice to be up against the Ravens without true. Lamar Jackson, that's but I don't wish injury on anybody. But
and obviously, sorry to cut you off, but I don't mention Baker Mayfield in there. Did take the Browns to the playoffs, but continue.
I just say, Lamar's hard to he's hard to game plan for. He's really tough to game plan for. Baker Mayfield, I think he's a decent quarterback. He kind of reminds me from the standpoint of he's kind of like the Andy Dalton for the Browns. He's not great, but he's okay. He's not bad. He has to have a great supporting cast around him to succeed.
That's true. And with the Browns having some injuries throughout the season, that has been kind of tough. And he has had tons of injuries this year, but he has battled, though. I will give him credit there.
You got to give him credit. The dude's playing through a lot of pain, I'm sure. I can't even imagine having all the problems he's having right now with the shoulder. So you got to give him credit for that.
Definitely. And the Giants, on the other hand, Mike Glennon took the start for Daniel Jones, who was out with a neck injury. He went 17 for 36, 191, 2 touchdowns and an interception. Not a whole lot from the Giants right there, 4-9 on the year. And then the 2 more 4 o'clock games, both of those were on CBS. The big one in the NFL was Bucks Bills right here, 33-27 overtime finish. Tom Brady, the ageless wonder, 31 for 46, 363 yards, 2 touchdowns and no interceptions on the day. I mean, what just keeps Tom Brady going at this age?
Man, I don't know. The fact that he even ran for a few yards, and Bruce Arians said that stuff's got to stop. I'm paraphrasing. He used some other words for that, but I don't know. The guy just continues to do what he does, and that's be great at pretty much every game he plays. He's really, really good or really, really great, and it's never really a bad game for him. It's amazing at his age that he does that.
Yeah, honestly, it took that the whole stride that they had after that Chiefs game last year in Week 12. They were 7-5 going into the bye. The media were questioning the Bucs overall. They were like, does Tom Brady still have it? This and that. And then you think about it, he actually came into a new offense. He ran the spread in New England for about 20 years or so. And then Bruce Arians really had him in a drop back passing game in the play action. And Tom Brady was having some, and I wouldn't say trouble, but he was having to make some adjustments with some of the reads across the field and some different types of receivers like a Mike Evans or a Chris Godwin was able to press the middle of the field, and Mike Evans was able to take some deep shots. But ever since then, they have not had any issues at all from last year all the way through now. They're 10-3. They're the number 2 seed. The Packers are ahead of them right now. And then another part of it, though, the Bucs are able to run the football. Leonard Fournette, 19 carries for 113 yards and a touchdown. He's had a very good season this year.
That takes a lot of pressure off Tom Brady, and you still have his safety valve, or like I like to call it, his little binky, which is Gronkowski. I mean, when you have a guy you're very familiar with, you don't have to think about what he's going to do. You kind of know based on how he runs a route, and he shrugs his shoulder a particular way. You already know after years of watching him do certain things where he's going to go. It makes his job a lot easier.
And that's just stuff that you have over that course of time playing with somebody. And we're going to get into that in just a minute with our team. But on the opposition, Josh Allen went 36 for 54, 308 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. He did get hurt, but on top of that, he had 12 carries for 109 yards and a touchdown. So he was really doing it all today, put the team on his back on the way to the comeback. Stephon Diggs went 7 catches for 74 yards. But the Bills are 7-6, the 7 seed. A lot of people had high expectations for them this year. Obviously they've had some woes when it comes to the running game. Josh Allen's done a pretty good job overall this year, and the Bills' defense has been pretty spectacular. But the issue is, having Josh Allen run the ball 12 times, and he gets hurt. He gets hurt. And especially going down the stretch, they play the Patriots again, who they lost to. I think about a week and a half ago, but. Got to find some consistency in the run game from somebody else.
Their run game sucks. I mean, if you look at Singletary and you got Zach Moss, and neither one of them really produce a whole lot. I mean, it's a running back by committee, so to speak, and neither one of them are really getting the job done. I mean, even if you look at it like from a fantasy standpoint, like neither one of them are putting up very much points, and you can't have your quarterback run that much. He eventually will get hurt. Look at Lamar Jackson. He survived the last couple of years, but now he's hurt. You can't run that much as a quarterback and not expect to get hurt.
I'd say that the Ravens have done a pretty good job in having, securing Lamar Jackson, but those are risks that you take, though, when you are a quarterback like that, when you have that ability to run, especially with Lamar Jackson, the electricity. And Josh Allen, I mean, for a big guy at 6'5", 6'6", I mean, he can run the ball really well.
He's pretty mobile.
Mm-hmm. He's a freight train running the football, but you definitely don't want to have him doing that until it's needed. So,
well, if you look how he got hurt, it's the tackle from behind when they try to drag behind the guy.
Yep.
You tend to fall on the ankle. You see broken ankles, dislocated ankles. When guys, who was it for the Bengals that happened to a couple years ago? It was
Tyler Eifert.
The guy dragged behind him and then snapped his ankle.
We even talk about a quarterback last year who's going to win comeback player of the year, Dak Prescott.
Yep,
that exactly happened to him. He was having a great season. He's having a great season this year, actually. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely a risk you have taken when you're running the football, especially as a quarterback. I mean, you still need those legs to throw the football as well. So, that was a big game right there. But the game that we focused on a lot, and just gave us so many different emotions and was tough to swallow. The Niners 26, the Bengals 23. It's just painful looking at that score.
Yeah, that was hard to watch as a Bengals fan, just because of all the times we shot ourselves in the foot and still stayed in the game. You figure you got two muff punts that gave up a total of 10 points. We lucked out on 2 muff kicks that really didn't cost us, for the most part, anything. Then you got a taunting penalty, which, I don't really think it was a taunting penalty. But if you're Von Bell, you got to stay out of that situation, because that was 4th down and they're kicking a field goal versus getting a touchdown.
Especially as a veteran, you got to know what you're doing.
And he did. If you think about that, he did that earlier in the Bears game. It was, I think, 3rd and 15 from the 5, batted down a pass from Andy Dalton. You didn't do anything special. It wasn't Aaron Rodgers. You batted down the ball. it would have been 4th down. We're getting the ball in the 50. Instead, they get a first down.
Mhm.
You can't do that and expect to survive. You can't have those mistakes going into trying to go into a playoff run.
And this is a younger team. We've even talked about this is a younger team, and inexperienced in a way, but they do act like they are experienced in some ways.
Mhm.
In the way that they're able to move the football down the field. But
Right.
and it all comes from their quarterback, who plays with a mindset that he's 5 years ahead of his time. But just stuff like that, you can't afford to have any lapses like that going into the playoffs at all. I mean,
Joe Burrow bailed him out. I mean, what a heck of a game he played. I mean, that was a studly game.
And
the dude, what did he throw for?
He went for 350, 25 or 34, 300, and I believe 49 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. We'll get into that in just a moment. But something interesting that I saw on the way home, Bengals cornerback Darius Phillips, the one who who actually muffed 2 punts, which were very critical. He was actually battling a broken hand since the Lions game, but still played through it.
Okay, I'll give you credit for playing through it, but once you muff the first one, if it's a hand problem, you got to put somebody else in there.
There's got to be. With the team being able to know that something's going on,
right?
Like if that's the issue, you're catching a ball with your hands and also part of the shoulder pad, but that's one of those. He's done a pretty good job overall until this game, but once that happens, you got to get him checked out at least.
Yeah, you got to get somebody else in there at that point. And if you knew he had a hand problem, as soon as he showed the first signs of bobbling the first one, you take him out, because if he doesn't bobble the second one, the score of that game is a whole different game.
And that score of that game is us on top, and we're 8-5 potentially. But
give credit to him. He got on social media.
That's true.
He owned up for it. But again, at the same time, it is a business, and if you can't get it done, somebody has to get it done.
Exactly.
You can't, your only job is just catch the ball, even if you got a fair catch it.
And it's like you said, I'm glad he went on social media, was able to explain that. And they are, and we're all humans and stuff like that.
Right.
People make mistakes.
Yep.
Just unfortunate the time that he made the mistakes and the results that came from it was the big thing.
Yeah. Go ahead and do that fumble when we're up 42-0.
That would be.
It's not a big deal.
I would love that trade right there. But yeah, I mean, we get to the Joe Burrow game in just a second. Overall, Jimmy Garoppolo didn't play a bad game either. 27 for 41, 296 yards, 2 touchdowns, but really dialed it down for him. He didn't have to make so many tough throws, especially
in the second half.
With the lead, and when you have a guy named George Kittle who goes for 13 for 151 and a touchdown. Cincinnati has always had trouble with tight ends.
Torched by tight ends over the middle.
And we played the number 2 tight end in football. We have the number 1 tight end in a couple of weeks against Travis Kelce. He's more of a receiver, but it's still the label of tight end. That's gonna be a big blur for us.
That's one of the things that frustrates me about Anarumo is that, it's like if you're playing against somebody that has the tight end set like that and you stick with the same defensive scheme, you kind of have to adjust for George Kittle is a game maker and a game breaker. And I think you really have to adjust your defense at least somewhat around that to kind of take that away, because if you take out Deebo Samuel and you take out George Kittle, you take out a lot of Jimmy Garoppolo's options, and if you take out his options, he's going to make mistakes. He didn't have to make a lot of mistakes because he had a lot of options.
That's true. And I mean, Deebo Samuel, we did a pretty good job on him the entire game.
I agree.
So we took him out, but with him lining up, I think they saw with him lining up in the backfield and also lining up outside would be the thing, because he's able to line up in so many places. But George Kittle there, I obviously don't know what the entire game plan was with that, but with George Kittle being able to line up in the slot and, down in the, 3-point position and all that stuff. But when it comes to that, top 2 tight end in football, it's a copycat league for a reason.
It's Kelce, Andrews, Kittle. There's your top 3, in my opinion. Maybe I'm off by 1 or 2, but those 3 are in the top 4 to 5 tight ends.
Yes, but in the NFL though, it's a copycat league. You gotta be looking at how some of these teams have been able to scheme for them and all that, because there has been some games where Kittle hasn't gone for 13 for 151, which does not sit well with me one bit. I mean, he had a big catch, which basically would have put them over the top if Robbie Gould didn't miss the game with a field goal.
True.
That catch, that was a complete mental breakdown on the defense, right? They're letting him slip out of the gap, slip into the zone and all that. But George Kittle completely wrecked the game for us. T. Higgins had 5 catches for 114 yards. He played he's played really good the last couple of weeks since the bye.
He really has. Well, remember, he was hurt earlier in the year.
Yes, he did get hurt.
And it took him the first game or two back, he had some key drops.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
and then since then, he's kind of settled in back into where he left off last year.
Exactly.
Last year was a good year for him as a rookie.
And then he got 908 yards receiving last year and had about 7 or 8 touchdowns, in 2020. But, it looked as though the Bengals were able to get Jamar Chase on a couple of big plays this week, which was nice to see. I mean, they going down the stretch, they got to find ways to, I wouldn't say ways. I mean, they got to find ways to get him the ball, but moving around a little bit. They don't have to put him on the outside all the time. Move him in the slot. That's stuff that he said, when they were having trouble at LSU and stuff like that. Obviously he'd had Justin Jefferson and Terrence Marshall to relieve some of that pressure, but let's be real. T. Higgins was also one of the best receivers in college football as well. Yep. And you have one of the top slot options in football, Tyler Boyd. It's around that same situation. And you have the same quarterback who played fantastic. 25 for 34, 348 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. But when we got to the third quarter, I think he threw for 100. He was 11 for 16, 111 yards, midway through the third quarter. So he was playing all right and everything. But in the fourth quarter, they finally opened it up.
Well, but see, that's been the problem with the Bengals all year. It's conservative until you're so far behind, we don't have a choice. And I'm not saying you have to go all out in the first quarter, but you got to open it up a little bit. You have a guy who set records at LSU with national championship, a guy who he has the swagger, he has the ability, not a cannon of an arm, but a good arm. But the mentality is what sets him apart. And if you look at what happened later in that game, I mean, look at the play where Jamar Chase, I like to call it tiptoed through the tulips. Dude tiptoed along the back line, keeping his heel off of it. Joe Burrow said when he cut left, I was throwing the ball to the right, and he made the adjustment and kept his feet inbounds and came back to the right. It's hard to teach that chemistry, and they know each other, and they've got to expand upon that. And like you said, why put Jamar Chase on the outside all the time where they're going to double him? Put him in the slot. I know he's one of the fastest guys on the team, but put him in the slot because a lot of his yards that he gets is yards after a catch. Mm-hmm. His yak is phenomenal this year.
And you look at the last great Bengals receiver that they started to do that. I know Jamar's a rookie right now, but the first couple of years into his career, they started to do that. What's it called? Double coverage. AJ Green. Put him in the slot. And it opened up a whole new world for everyone else, and still consistently got him his 6 for 90 every single game.
And you can still run a skinny post off that. You can run different looks off the slot. You don't have to run over the middle every single time. That's exactly
what it is. The different looks. Yeah. I mean, it's able to clear guys out and then put him in space, or it's able to have him as the focal point and let Higgins and Boyd go after it. So it's just that scheming portion right there. Zach Taylor overall, his play calling has been suspect. There's been some times where it's just why haven't you opened it up this late?
Yeah.
But it's also scheming, I would say. They have some good route concepts and schemes in there, but they need to start throwing Jamar Chase in the slot a little more just to, keep the defense honest and have a guy that they don't necessarily trust on him. They move their corner or number one corner inside on him. They have an inexperienced guy on the outside, and you have T. Higgins out there. That's just gonna cause mismatches the entire day.
And you got to set it up. I mean, look at how many times have we talked about Jamar Chase? As soon as he runs across the backfield, he's getting the ball every single time. Well, why not run that play 2 or 3, 4, 5, 6 times during the game? Never give him the ball, and then the one time he gets the ball, they're thinking he's not getting the ball, and then he's going to break one off. I think Zach Taylor's still kind of learning that. I don't know if he'll get it figured out or not. I don't know if he needs to give me an offensive coordinator that can run it. I think he's gotten a lot better now that he has better pieces around him. Mm-hmm. But you got to use Jamar Chase different, and you got to use T. Higgins different. And Tyler Boyd is the surest hands of all, and that dude has to get the ball consistently.
I think he has 600. pardon me, I think 600 yards receiving this year. I get it. You're spreading the ball around. Jamar Chase with 1,000 yards this year. You have T. Higgins with you have T. Higgins with 812 yards on the year. So I mean, I understand there's obviously going to be that third guy in there, but it doesn't have to be equal distribution. But being able to keep the defense on their toes is huge. And next week, Cincinnati, I mean, they've got the Denver Broncos 7-6. Yeah. We're going to preview that on Thursday.
They creeped in there. We called them earlier. A lot of people called them early in the year a fake.
I know. I was one of them.
A fake team as far as the record goes. Yeah. And because you got Teddy
Two Gloves
Bridgewater, but they're playing well.
Yes,
they're playing well. They've really kind of come on toward the end of the season here. I kind of thought they were going to fall off, but they're solid.
Well, the difference there is they're able to run the football with Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams right there. So that's a big portion of it. And Teddy Bridgewater's just doing enough, and their defense is still
he's managing the game.
He's managing the game pretty well, and their defense is still pretty good, still applying pressure on quarterbacks and all, but. We'll see the Bengals and Broncos 4:05 on CBS on Sunday. The Niners, their next game is against the Falcons.
Every game is a playoff game from here on out for all the AFC North teams because they're all right in the mix.
Yes, they are.
It's the Ravens, the Browns, the Steelers are still in the mix.
Yeah, they have the
as
Titans
much as I like to hate it, they're still in the mix. And for the Bengals too, it's a playoff game every week here on out.
Yes, it is. And I mean, the Steelers have the Titans, the Browns have the Raiders on Saturday, the Ravens have the Packers on Sunday. We've got the Broncos. So I mean, overall, there's good opportunities. If you're able to take the job and get it done and all that. There's some very, very nice prizes right there. And then hopping over to the Sunday night game, I know we watched it a little bit. The Bears and the Packers 45-30. Was not really expecting that score overall. The Bears went out and they really took care of business in the first half. But, I'll look at the numbers here. Justin Fields went 18 for 33, 224 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 picks. But the story of the game always, when it comes to the Green Bay Packers,
Aaron freaking Rodgers.
Don't have to say it. I mean, that's incredible. 29 for 37, 341, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. As Chris Collinsworth would always say, now here's a guy. This is an extraordinary guy. This is a methodical guy. This is, a guy with, a freak arm and all that stuff.
The only thing about their team is their line's not all that good, but their defense is better than he's ever had.
Oh, their defense is tough.
Solid. Mm-hmm. I got them in my fantasy league because of that. In 2 of my fantasy leagues, they are straight solid.
They apply pressure and they have a very good secondary on the back end. Jari Alexander, Rasul Douglas, Eric Stokes, Adrian Amos. I mean, Darnell Savage. They've got it all back there. And when the defense is able to take care of their job and just let Aaron Rodgers do his thing. Just some of the throws Aaron Rodgers.
He's surgical, man. He is surgical. The dude is so surgical. It's ridiculous. They should give him a doctorate for that. He is like a PhD. The dude is a surgeon.
It's just unbelievable. Like just some of the arm angles he's able to use and just some of the, just like I think his footwork is just it's unique though.
But if you look at it, like they'll talk to him, it's really all in the twist of the hips. Like that's where he gets his torque at. Yeah. And the people are like, oh, he's falling kind of backwards, but he's backwards, but it's the torque. You look at him. What's his name for Kansas City?
Mahomes. Yeah.
Mahomes, same way. He gets that torque in his hips, and you're like, it doesn't really look what most people consider orthodox. Like. Go forward with your pass. It's twist the hips. I can fall backwards and I can still sling that ball. They got cannon of an arm though.
Mm-hmm. And Aaron Rodgers, I mean, remember at the start of the season, he had a nightmare performance week 1 against the Saints. But, ever since then, 3,219 yards, 27 touchdowns, the 4 interceptions on the year. This is another MVP-like season that Aaron Rodgers is having. Overall, I mean, there's been so many guys that have been in this clump to win the MVP, so it very well could be him at the end.
I'd say it's got to be probably right now him and Brady. Wouldn't you think?
I would agree. I mean,
you got John Wick basically playing for the Green Bay Packers. He looks like a homeless man.
Then you got
on crack or meth.
And then you got
the dude looks straight greasy, but he didn't he say he grew that out for like a year?
That was a year-long Halloween plan right there, and that was one heck of one. I mean, he's really lived up to that.
He got Tom Brady on the other ends, like like straight GQ in it. And
Ageless wonder.
and the fact that Tom Brady decided to switch, he went from the AFC to the NFC, knowing he's going to have to battle him, and still won the championship last year.
And the fact that this year he might have to play Bill Belichick in the Super Bowl
But I would
again.
Yeah, I know. I would say Aaron Rodgers is probably the most talented quarterback. It's him and Mahomes
up there. Yes.
And
then you also can't forget about well, we'll hop into that quarterback in just a minute. Devontae Adams did have 10 catches for 121 yards and 2 touchdowns. Just another part of the chemistry. You know how Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase have a great chemistry, especially coming out of college.
Right.
But these two have one heck of a chemistry as well.
Man, they torched the Bengals. What did Javonte have? He had like 200
yards, 205 yards.
200 plus yards. You take him away, it's a whole different ball game. Bill Belichick's pretty good at taking away your main option. I think the Bengals should have taken a page out of that book and try to take him out of the game.
That's where it comes the copycat league once again. But that's another tough guy to stop. And then I think when you look down the stretch, you got to be able to run the football, especially if you're a cold weather team, to really set yourself apart. The Packers are doing that right now with A.J. Dillon, as well as having Aaron Jones being that second option right now.
That's a pretty good second option.
I mean, that's one heck of a second option. If they're able to do that down the stretch, Aaron Rodgers, doing his thing, and I wouldn't even say managing a game, but just not, trying to make stupid plays or anything like that. This team could very well end up in Los Angeles in Super Bowl 56 this year.
But tell me, if you're in the NFC, you're the Arizona Cardinals, the Rams, and the Buccaneers
and the Cowboys.
You're doing everything you can do to get the first or the top spot, because you don't want to go play in Green Bay.
That's the
when you're used to either playing in warm weather or a dome.
Only place you don't want to play. And the Packers' number one objective is get that, and we could get to the Super Bowl unless we play Tom Brady. Because that's about the only other way that, you might not be able to. I mean, we saw last year. But
and Tom Brady's used to playing in the cold.
That's true.
I still want to get those warm weather teams or dome teams in the cold.
You think about it.
You got to get, if you're Green Bay, you get that top spot, you feel like I got a really good shot to take down a warm weather team.
And in the AFC, it's like the exact opposite right now, because every team that's leading their division is a cold weather team. The Chiefs, you got the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Patriots, even worse.
Yeah.
And then the other, I keep forgetting who. So the Chiefs, Ravens, Titans. I mean, Titans. It's still cold though. I mean,
it's not down south.
It's nothing like that. I mean, but cold weather, and then the NFC's got all the domes and warm weather and all that. But the Packers, they would take care of business 45-30 on Sunday night, and then last night was a very interesting game. Another guy who I would say, their unique talent, Kyler Murray. 32 for 49, 383 yards, but did have 2 interceptions. Did not play. Did
you see the meme on Instagram where it had Aaron Donald and then it had Kyler Murray like a little midget with the football?
Yep.
But Kyler Murray, I mean, in all honesty, the dude, I know he didn't have a great game, but it's not like he didn't do anything. I mean, I mean, Aaron Donald started the game out with a sack.
I mean, Aaron Donald started the game with a sack and ended the game with a sack.
That's true.
I mean, overall, that's just Aaron Donald and his game wrecking right there.
Kyler Murray, his moves, man, when he gets in open field,
he runs like a toddler that stole candy.
His shake and bake it's
incredible,
off the chart.
I did see a play right before halftime when he was running. I think it was running down the left sideline, bottom of the screen on ESPN, but he was running down. He was just kind of bobbing and weaving and was able to get that extra yard and get out with 1 second to go. Just stuff like that. That really just puts a jolt in your team. And Kyler Murray is able to provide that, with his arm, with his legs, whatever. And then, seeing leading, and he also led them in rushing with 7 for 61. But seeing A.J. Green as a leading receiver, 7 catches for 102 yards, and join the 10,000-yard club last night. Still my favorite player of all time, A.J. Green. But it's nice to see him do well. Yeah. And if our Bengals aren't gonna if they don't make the playoffs, I'm going to be rooting for these guys.
Maybe if I started him, I wouldn't have lost to you in our fantasy.
I'm actually very glad you didn't. You beat me, and you beat me in one league. I beat you in the other.
You're lucky Connor had a big game because I lost to you by like
That's
12.
True. He had a ton of catches though. Ton of catches in 2 touchdowns.
I remember one year I lost in fantasy league. I was in semifinals, and I was playing against a guy that had Derrick Henry. I was up by 52 points and Derrick Henry was the last guy playing, he scored 55. And I'm like, if he scores a great game and has 40, I still win.
Mm-hmm.
And the bad part about that is in the consolation game, the guy that beat me played in the championship. I would have beat the two guys that played in the championship by like 45 points. Derrick Henry had the one freaking game, and I'm praying this dude comes back.
Fantasy football will make you do some very crazy things and will make you rethink your life decisions.
I told you when you first started playing, I said you will question everything you do after fantasy football because you'll start the right guy, you think, and you'll have a bad game, and you should have started the backup, and the backup blows it up, and it will mess you up.
Once you hit 3 or 4 different leagues in 1 year, then you basically are drowned and you just can't decide anymore. So that's the tough decision right there. But on the Rams side of things, Matthew Stafford actually played a very, very good game. 23 for 30, 287 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Had a deep post route touchdown to start off the third quarter with Van Jefferson last night.
Geez, did you see that throw? I mean, that was a phenomenal throw. That dude just unloaded.
That was a rocket right there.
That was a rocket.
And on top of that, with Van Jefferson scoring, I believe his dad is the Cardinals receivers coach.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was actually the line receiver coach when Calvin Johnson broke the receiving record in 2012. And
really,
Calvin Johnson praised him as the best receivers coach that he's ever had.
That's awesome, man. That's coming from Megatron. That's a pretty high praise.
And think about it, it's interesting with those two being division rivals, and they're battling for a spot, and the bittersweet of your son scoring a big touchdown in a big game like that. But then on the same side, you're trying to make your money and win a Super Bowl and get a ring on your finger.
True.
But and it all starts here in divisional games. Sonny Michel knows what that's about. 20 carries for 79 yards when he played for the Patriots. 20 carries, 79 yards. Was able to provide almost 4 yards a carry for the Rams. So that was big. And then Cooper Kupp, another big game for Cooper Kupp. 13 catches, 123 yards, and a touchdown. It's just normal.
He just knows exactly where to be. The dude's fast. He's quick. He's smart. He knows exactly where to be.
And just looking at it, he knows exactly what he's doing when he's first in catches, yards, and touchdowns in the National Football League. 113 for 1489 in the yards category.
I go back to fantasy. Touchdowns. The dude is carrying one of my fantasy
Unbelievable.
teams.
He's carrying a boatload of these people around.
How tall is that dude?
I actually can look that up.
How big is he? I want to say he's about like 6'1", maybe. He's not.
Yeah, he's
small.
He's 6'2", actually. 6'2",
Okay.
208. So he's obviously not your prototypical receiver that you see these days. But
where did he go to college?
He went to Eastern Washington.
What? He coming out small D1, huh?
Yep, small D1 right there.
I won't put him up there with the same guy, but you get these small D1 schools. These guys are grinding it out, trying to make a name for themselves.
Yes, they are.
I will go back to a Jerry Rice.
That is true.
A very small D1 school.
Who is Jerry Rice?
The greatest wide receiver of all time ever.
Yep.
And I'm not trying to correlate Cooper Kupp with that. I'm just correlating the fact of these guys out of some of these small schools. Jerry Rice was known for outworking everybody, and the fact that this dude's out here, he's getting it done. He's got to be isn't he the top 1 or 2 rated wide receiver?
Oh, top rated receiver.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, he's got everything packed up.
Don't confuse me. I'm not saying he's up there with Jerry Rice. I'm just correlating the fact that this dude is working his butt off, kind of like Jerry Rice did. Obviously, not the body of work though.
Exactly, and. With the Rams starting to get things turned on right now, this is the perfect
time. Aren't they? Think about it.
That.
If you have Odell Beckham Jr.
had a touchdown last night.
Imagine if they had Robert Woods. He's out for the year, right?
Got hurt right before Odell played his first game.
Yep.
And
Odell had a big catch last night.
He did have a big catch. And
I'm not an Odell Beckham Jr. fan. I'm really not. Dude's talented. I think with the right quarterback, he could kind of be lightning in a bottle for the Rams. I think for a short period of time right now, because you're looking at 4 or 5 weeks down.
This is a win now snenario. The Rams are always in win now mode when it comes to trading your first round pick every year. They have to be.
So they don't have a first round draft pick for till 3 years from now, right?
3 years from now, they have their first round draft pick in like 5 years. So they're basically win now every year.
Exactly.
And this is a potential good time to do it, especially when the defending Super Bowl champion Patriots won it in their home stadium last year. Why not them? But we'll kind of wrap things up here real quick in a minute. But we'll look at the playoff race right now. We're gonna start with the AFC. It's unbelievable. 13 deep. 13 deep
Like
right now.
everybody's mired at 7-6 or 8-5.
There's a 3-game split from the number 1 to the number 13 seeded Patriots to the Dolphins. The Patriots are 9-4, as well as the Titans and Chiefs. That's 1 through 3. The Ravens are 4.
The Chiefs are 9-4.
The Chiefs are 9-4 now.
Wow, just starting out the way they started out.
Yep.
That's unbelievable. The way they've righted the ship.
It's unbelievable. It really is. I mean, they
It's
literally.
unbelievable.
Again, everybody talks about them being like, "Oh, when are the Chiefs just going to turn on the switch and all that stuff?" Like, and they did. I wouldn't say they turned on against the Packers or the Giants because they were still sluggish in both of those games, even only winning by 6 without Aaron Rodgers playing against them. But it was that Raiders Sunday Night Football game. I think I alluded to that earlier before you came on here. But it was that Raiders Sunday Night Football game. They won 41-14, and they have not looked back since. Their offense has been clicking, and their defense has played spectacular down the stretch.
Their defense was very suspect early on, and they've really made a big change.
I mean, their defense, was more holes than Swiss cheese. It was terrible. It was bad. It was one big gaping hole on it.
It wasn't
what it was.
It wasn't even baby Swiss cheese. It was like Big Mama Swiss cheese.
It was a gaping black hole.
It was bad.
That just gave offenses 40 points here. You get 40, 40. It's just really bad execution right there. But
who's tier 2? So you got the Patriots, the Chiefs.
So you have the 3
Titans?
right there, and yes, you have the Patriots, Titans, and Chiefs are the first 3 right here, and then you have the Ravens are division leading in the AFC North at 8-5. The wild card looks as though the Chargers are 8-5, the Colts are 7-6, and the Bills are 7-6.
Now think about this: Titans potentially have Derrick Henry coming back in. 2 weeks, 3 weeks? 3 weeks.
Yes, they will most likely.
Could you imagine getting them back right for the playoffs? Oh, jeez.
If they have him for at least 1 or 2 games, that'll get him up to speed. But with Derrick Henry, he's literally a robot. So I think they're going to be fine.
I looked at his stats in college. His stats, he ran for. His numbers were just off the chart.
His numbers in high school were ridiculous.
That's what I meant. I'm sorry, high school. Just off the chart. It's just ridiculous.
Unreal. I mean, CBS Sports and Max Preps posted literally once every other month.
He single-handedly cost me a playoff spot in my fantasy league on one of my leagues. I picked him number 1.
He's done a lot of bad things for you in the past in fantasy until you decide to pick him up every year.
He needs to redeem himself this year and come back in the playoffs.
Yep.
Derek, I need you to come back.
Just not if you're playing me in anything. I don't know why you would be.
But right, exactly.
And then the Chargers are 8-5, Colts 7-6, Bills 7-6. Chargers hitting the stride right now.
Yep.
They should be a lock. They're playing the Chiefs on Thursday Night Football, though. The Chargers beat them the first time week 3.
As Bengals fans, I need the Chiefs to win because the Chiefs are already going to lock it up. Let's get the Chargers out of the way.
That's true, but I mean, it either way it goes. I mean, both those teams should be in the playoffs overall. When it comes, to record and how hot both those teams are right now. The Colts been running the football. If you take Jonathan Taylor away, then if you take Jonathan Taylor out of the equation, I don't think the Colts are going to do a whole lot. But
he's got to be up for MVP potentially.
But they haven't done. But no one's done a thing about it.
Right?
They can't.
It's hard to stop him.
I mean, he was ridiculous to stop in college. It was almost like you couldn't stop him other than Ohio State when they held him to 60 yards was his worst game.
Wait a minute, didn't we go to that game?
We did not that one.
It was the year after. What?
It was 2 years before.
Oh, 2 years. Okay.
Yeah, because they played him in the shoe in 2019.
That's right.
He had 60 yards. And he kind of went wild in the Big Ten Championship that year, but we still.
Who's the running back they had when we went to the Big Ten Championship?
No, they had Jonathan Taylor then.
Right, but he didn't go off.
He didn't go off. No.
What was that final score?
I think it was 27-21, I think.
Yeah,
that was when they had the turf and the turf malfunction in our end.
That's right.
Yeah, that was an interesting game to be at. Also, Terry McLaurin didn't know he was going to be that big of a star there. But yeah, the Colts, they play the Patriots on Saturday night.
That's a big game.
Huge game. We need the Colts to lose.
Yes, we do.
We need the Colts to lose.
We want the Chargers to lose, Colts to lose as Bengals fans.
And we need these guys to lose to the Bills, unfortunately. But
Browns.
I've never had a problem with the Bills or anything like that. But at this point, I'm throwing all of my I haven't had a problem with you or anything like that. I'm throwing all my feelings out of the window. I need my Cincinnati Bengals in the playoffs, and I will give you the reason how to get in the playoffs. The pathway to get in the playoffs. And this team, the Browns, I don't want them in at all.
Well,
I mean, if both Ohio teams are in it, I'm not going to complain.
Right, as long as we're in,
if we're both in it. But I mean, if it comes down to us and them. overall for the final game of the season. It's not, I've told those guys, I've told you before, I've told Chad before, it's not going to be pretty.
No,
not going to be.
Our household would be a mess.
Not going to be pretty.
Be
Even there's no Browns fans in this household, but it's very dramatic.
Has not been good the last 2 weeks here.
Yes, it's very dramatic watching football here. It wasn't even a week ago at the stadium. It was that whole stadium was just wow. But so they're the 8, we're the 9. The Broncos, who we play, are right behind us at 10, 7-6.
But the Steelers are still in it. They're starting out
Steelers
terrible.
Are 6-1.
Yep.
Then the Raiders are in it still. They're 6-7, but they're more on the decline.
They're playing Cleveland.
They play Cleveland on Saturday. So we need the Raiders to beat them, but
Cleveland, it's Bills and Colts, all 3 to lose, and Chargers. All of them to lose.
I mean, I think I'm not really looking at the Chargers as much since they are a game better than us and they have the tiebreaker over us.
True.
So that's why I'm not really paying attention to them as much. But if we're in it in the wild card, then we look at seedings, then I'll pay attention to it.
Gotcha.
But depending on where we'd have to play. But we've got to win to see where we'd have to play.
Yeah,
so
we got to win 3 or 4. Mm-hmm. We're done.
And the Miami Dolphins have climbed from the dead. They're 6-7. That's unbelievable. And they this week they have a game. They play the Jets. They could be 7-7 before you know it.
Hope they see the Jets we saw.
I hope so too. The Mike White era, but I don't think they're going to see
Mike
White anytime
Mike
soon.
Smith.
I don't think they're going to see
Joe
White
Smith
anytime soon. But
Joe White.
They're just going through many different names right there. Many different common names. That work at an accountant's office or whatever the heck. I don't know. Average Joes. I don't know.
Just average Joes doing average things.
Mm-hmm. And but these 3 quarterbacks that lead the NFC are not average at all. Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, and Kyler Murray lead the top 3 seeds.
You got Dak Prescott probably after that. I'm guessing.
Yep. You got Green Bay, Tampa, Arizona, and Dallas. So your top 4 seeds that are division winners right now. The 3 teams mentioned first all are at 10-3, so this is going to be an interesting.
And Dak is no slouch.
And no, Dak not at all. Dak
he didn't have a great game. I mean, the dude is no slouch.
Well, not at all. And especially coming off the injury last year. And
oh my gosh, that was ugly.
Comeback player of the year, and I mean he's still in the MVP conversation.
Comeback player of the year is like him and Joe Burrow, probably, right?
Those 2 right there. So I mean, if he wins MVP, he's definitely winning comeback player of the year.
Right.
So, so those are the top 4 right there. The Rams are 9-4, but they're right in striking distance of the Cardinals in the division. So very well could happen that the Cardinals might end up playing a road game in the playoffs, but they're a young and I wouldn't say inexperienced team, but in spots, in their major spots, they're inexperienced with Cliff Kingsbury. They haven't really been in that situation. I mean, last year they almost made the playoffs. Kyler Murray hasn't really, been a part of a great NFL team like this.
True.
The defense seems as they've kind of taken a toll when it comes to playing some of those better teams. But I mean, they're still 10-3. I'm not going to question them one bit. They could have clinched last night, clinched a playoff spot if they won last night, but looks like they'll have to wait another week.
Well, they hit Rams team in stride, not the same Rams team from the week or 2 before.
They hit them at the right time. And the Niners at 7-6, as much as it pains me to say. But the Niners able to run the football.
Well, they had some rough. They had a lot of injuries.
Yep,
a rough patch there for a few games, and now all of a sudden they've kind of turned it on a little bit. And
exactly.
And you know what? Again, you just got to take advantage of the situation. We, as a Bengals fan, we handed them quite a bit of stuff, and to give them to their credit, they took advantage of it. And that's what you got to do. I look back. I was looking at a stat here a while back, and it said that a lot of NFL games are decided on like 1 or 2 plays or 1 or 2 scores, and that's the biggest difference. And you know what? Again, we had so many errors in that game. And we deserved to lose, I guess. I guess at that point.
Overall, yes, we did. But the Niners able to show many different looks and all, having a great tight end, having 2 very good receivers, and Debo and Brandon Ayuk, who scored a game-winning touchdown,
and a good defense, decent defense,
decent defense, but a great defensive line. So that's a big thing, especially down the stretch. But then when it comes to this and the same amount of same records that these teams have, Washington, Minnesota, Philly, Atlanta, New Orleans, all 6-7 from the 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Anything can change in the next week. In one day, this could be.
Do any of those teams play each other?
Yes, Washington and Philly play this week.
Okay.
And I believe Minnesota has a game against
because if you look at the
Bears on Monday Night Football,
if you look at the
and the Bears gave the
AFC,
Packers a run.
and I know I'm kind of going backwards, but you look at the AFC, the Browns just played the Ravens.
Mhm.
The Browns play the Bengals to end the season.
Yep.
We play the Ravens, and the Browns play. Don't they play the Steelers still?
Yeah, Monday Night Football.
So
week
you
17.
got 3 games. That's all going to decide.
There's
That's going to decide a lot
Mhm.
of stuff. And so the NFC is very similar from that standpoint.
Yep. And
I love the way the schedule works out. I mean,
Mhm.
if you're a fan of football, even though I wish my team already had playoffs wrapped up,
Yep.
I want to play a meaningful game because as a Bengals fan, we haven't played a meaningful game in 5 years.
5 years. Or
5
so.
years, right?
I mean, yeah.
And Browns fans, okay, you had a good season last year, but before that, you really hadn't played a lot of meaningful games in
a decade,
10 years,
over a decade.
Okay,
yeah.
and as Ohio fans, Bengals and Browns kind of in the same situation. Bengals were there for quite a while.
And
Finally,
the Browns where they left off
were terrible for a while, and then
Yep.
had one good season. So
Mhm.
you want to play a meaningful game.
Yep.
Let's just duke it out and see what happens.
Exactly. And then the Falcons are playing the Niners on Sunday. So I mean, if the
What's
Falcons,
the Falcons record now?
6-7.
What?
Yeah, they've really
They
flown under the
surprised me,
radar. And if the
geez.
Falcons beat the Niners, the Falcons are the 6th seed in the playoffs right now.
Could you imagine if the Falcons still had
Julio?
who stepped out? Ridley?
Really? Yeah.
Ridley?
I think Ridley's back though. I'm not sure.
Well, did he step out for the?
he did. He stepped
for
out
for
something
mental.
Yes,
mental.
I believe he did step. Yes.
Yeah, because I mean, man, that dude.
And then the Saints could probably kiss their things goodbye as they play the Bucs on Sunday Night Football this week.
Man,
So
but they've kind of had their number. I would
that's
agree
true.
with you.
That's true, though.
They've
That's
kind of
true.
messed them up in the past.
That's true, but this is going to be a different look with Taysom Hill at it, though.
Could you imagine?
But that's true. When the Bucs needed it, though, they've gotten them. But the Saints overall have had their number.
They've had their number. Yeah.
And they had a guy named Drew Brees who will be covering that game as well for football.
I've heard of that guy.
I've heard of him.
I've heard of him.
But yes, so we'll be monitoring the playoff race down the stretch for the next. It's gonna be 4 weeks. I mean, we got 4 weeks left of football. It's flown by.
The next 4 weeks are playoff games. They
really
are.
Every team is a playoff game.
For most teams, other probably than the Bucs and. I mean,
other than that's really the top 3 seeds.
Yeah, it's pretty much playoff games.
The top 3 seeds and the entire AFC is
it's
because
the
the number 1 overall seed could be, for all we know, it could be one of those teams that's a wild card team.
That's
right
true.
Now.
Yeah.
But yep, and we'll talk about more of that on Thursday and the weeks to come. Thanks, Dad, for stepping in. That was really short notice, but
I know my stuff.
Yep.
Right,
I know you do.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Definitely.
I appreciate that.
Yep. And you guys can catch us 7:15 on Thursday. We'll have Brady and Jake back, hopefully, after they finish up their exam work and everything. But yep, this is Chase Yance, my dad, Chad Yance Sr. And we will see you guys on Thursday.